The conflict in the Middle East will likely overshadow talks at the G7 summit in Canada. Anthony Albanese has arrived in Fiji on his way to that conference. Political editor Andrew Clennell is travelling with the PM and joins me now from Fiji. Andrew, we haven't heard yet from the Prime Minister. There's so much going on, even since he's left the country.
Yeah, well, you know, I feel like I'm flying into about 4 stories, Tom, to be honest with you. And is Donald Trump even going to show, or is he going to show at the G7 for more than, say, a couple of hours, fly in, fly out, given that he's had to hold that cabinet meeting today to discuss the Israeli strikes and things are blowing up in the Middle East, the oil price is up. You know, we've had riots in America. We got more protests when his parade goes on, but he's front and centre, whether he shows or not. We expect him to, and I expect a bilateral meeting between him and Prime Minister Albanese, even if it's a short one, the first ever. Right now we're in Nadi. The PM, I guess, on the tarmac, he could have made some comments about the Israel-Iran war. He's decided not to, but he's about to have a bilateral meeting with Sitiveni Rabuka, the Fijian Prime Minister. And in that context, I think he'll probably be asked by the journalists who've been allowed in there about the conflict, and he'll make his first comments. He's left that at the moment to the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong. So we're here for the night. Very important, of course, in terms of being our security partner in the Pacific, Fiji. It's the Prime Minister's 3rd visit here, and I think it's his 7th meeting with the Prime Minister Rabuka. And then we travel to Seattle for some announcements by the PM there, on the way to Calgary and Kananaskis for that G7 meeting, which will be kicking off around Monday morning Australian time, Tom. One of the issues that I'm sure would be raised between Prime Minister Albanese and President Trump is, of course, the AUKUS agreement. We haven't heard from the Prime Minister at a press conference or anything of that nature since the announcement by America. A very interesting timing ahead of a potential bilat, saying we might actually get out of this AUKUS agreement. We're certainly reviewing it. And I put this to the Prime Minister last Tuesday, his last real public comments on this, the prospect that if we don't lift our defence spending, as America are demanding, that they could just pull out of the AUKUS nuclear submarine deal.
It may be in Australia's interest to stand up to the US on trade, but is it really in our interest to stand up to Donald Trump when it comes to how much we spend on defence? And if we don't spend more on defence, couldn't the Americans threaten to not build or give us the AUKUS submarines?
Well, I think that Australia should decide what we spend on Australia's defence. Simple as that.
Clearly, Andrew, Anthony Albanese has set himself in a position where he's not going to say, yeah, great, 3%, 3.5%, whatever it might be, even if he gives some indication of being willing to, you know, pull forward spending that's specific, that's to do with projects being delivered in certain years, missile defence and whatever it might be. But, as you alluded to, maybe the meeting even doesn't happen, and that, you know, could well be totally out of Anthony Albanese's hands. That'd be the frustration or the uncertainty as he's tracking towards Canada.
Well, it's June, isn't it? And he got elected in November and he was inaugurated in January, Donald Trump. So it's a very long time to not have a face-to-face meeting, I think, and only 2 phone calls. So I think the Prime Minister will be very much hoping for this meeting. Ambassador Rudd would have been working towards it. And let's hope it happens, I guess. I mean, it's certainly in Australia's national interest with all these balls up in the air for it to occur. And, of course, Donald Trump will be going into that meeting with him not that happy with a few countries in terms of their sanctions they put on Israel. Australia, Canada, New Zealand and the UK. Well, New Zealand's not there, obviously, but Canada and the UK leaders are. So there's that kind of underlying tension around the Middle East as well. At the G7 meeting, there'll be 16 countries in all. So you wonder why they call it the G7 sometimes, don't you, Tom?
Indeed, yeah, it just gets bigger and bigger. Andrew Clennell, quite the backdrop there, but I know it's sort of all work and no play on these trips, so I'm not going to say enjoy it, but we'll talk again as we see when the Prime Minister will get up and talk on